The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Volume 1, Chapter 1. Marseilles. The Arrival. On the 24th of February, 1815, the watchtower of Notre Dame de la Garde signaled the three masters, the Pharaon, from Smyrna, Trieste, and Naples. As usual, a pilot put off immediately and, rounding the Chateau d'If, got on board the vessel between Cape Morgion and the Isle of Réunion. Immediately, and as usual, the platform of Fort St. John was covered with lookers-on. It is always a great event at Marseilles for a ship to come into port, especially when this ship, like the Pharaon, had been built, rigged, and laden on the stocks of the old fosse, and it belonged to an owner of the city. The ship drew on. She had safely passed the strait which some volcanic shock has made between the Isle of Calasareña and the Isle of Jaros, had doubled Pomac, and approached the harbor under topsails, jib, and foresail, but so slowly and in so cheerless a manner that the idlers, with that instinct which foresees misfortune, asked one another what accident could have happened on the board. However, those experienced in navigation saw plainly that if any accident had occurred, it was not to the vessel herself, for she bore down with all the evidence of being skillfully handled, the anchor ready to be dropped, the bowsprit shrouds loose, and beside the pilot who was steering the Pharaon through the narrow entrance of the port of Marseilles, a young man with rapid gestures and a vigilant eye, who superintended every motion of the ship and repeated each order of the pilot. The vague disquietude which prevailed amongst the spectators had so much affected one of the crowd on the terrace of St. John, that he did not await the arrival of the vessel in harbor, but, jumping into a small skiff, desired to be pulled alongside the Pharaon, which he reached as she rounded the creek of La Réserve. When the young sailor saw this man approach, he left his station by the pilot, and came, hat in hand, to the side of the ship's bulwarks. He was a fine, tall, slim young fellow, of from 18 to 20 years, with beautiful black eyes and hair like ebony, and his whole appearance bespoke that calmness and resolution peculiar to men accustomed from their cradle to contend with danger. "Ah, it is you, Dante," cried the man in the skiff. "What's the matter, and why have you such an air of sadness aboard?" "A great misfortune, Mr. Morel, or Monsieur Morel," replied the young man. "A great misfortune, for me especially. Off Civita Vizcaya we lost our brave Captain Leclerc." "And the cargo?" inquired the owner eagerly. "Is all safe, Monsieur Morel, and I think you will be satisfied on that head. But poor Captain Leclerc, what happened to him?" asked the owner, with an air of considerable relief. "What happened to the worthy captain? He died." "Fell into the sea?" "No, sir, he died of the brain fever, in dreadful agony." Then, turning to the crew, he said, "Look out there, all ready to drop anchor." All hands obeyed. At the same moment 8 or 10 seamen sprang, some to the mainsheets, others to the braces, others to the halyards, others to the jib ropes, and others to the topsail brails. The young sailor gave a look to see that his orders were promptly and accurately obeyed, and then again turned to the owner. "And how did this misfortune occur?" inquired he, resuming the conversation suspended for a moment. "Alas, sir, in the most unexpected manner. After a long conversation with the harbour master, Captain Leclerc left Naples greatly disturbed in his mind. At the end of 24 hours he was attacked by a fever, and died 3 days afterward. We performed the usual burial service, and he is at his rest, sewn up in his hammock, with 2 balls of 36 pounds each at his head and feet, off the island of El Giglio. We bring to his widow his word and cross of honor. It was worthwhile, truly, added the young man with a melancholy smile, to make war against the English for 10 years, and to die at last, like everybody else, in his bed. Why, you see, Edmond, replied the owner, who appeared more comforted at every moment, we are all mortal, and the old must make way for the young. If not, why, there will be no promotion, and as you have assured me that the cargo is all safe and sound, Monsieur Moreau, take my word for it, and I advise you not to take 100,000 francs for the profit of the voyage. Then, as they were just passing the round tower, the young man shouted out, "Ready, there, to lower topsails, foresail, and jib." The order was executed as promptly as if on board a man of war. "Let go, and brail all." At this last word all the sails were lowered, and the bark moved almost imperceptibly onward, advancing only under the impulse already given. "Now, if you will come on board, Monsieur Morel," said Dante, observing the owner's impatience, "here is your supercargo, Monsieur Danglars, coming out of his cabin, who will furnish you with every particular. As for me, I must look after the anchoring, and dress the ship in mourning." The owner did not wait to be twice invited. He seized a rope which Dante flung to him, and, with activity that would have done credit to a sailor, climbed up the side of the ship, whilst the young man, going to his desk, left the conversation to the individual whom he had announced under the name of Danglars, who now, coming out of the cabin, advanced toward the owner. He was a man of 25 or 26 years of age, of unprepossessing countenance, obsequious to his superiors, insolent to his inferiors, and then, besides his position as responsible agent on board, which is always obnoxious to the sailors, he was as much disliked by the new crew as Edmond Dantès was beloved by them. "Well, Monsieur Morel," said Danglars, "you have heard of the misfortune that has befallen us?" "Yes, yes, poor Captain Leclerc. He was a brave and honest man, and a first-rate seaman above all, grown old between sky and ocean, as should a man charged with the interest of a house so important as that of Morel and Son," replied Danglars. "But," replied the owner, following with his look Dante, who was watching the anchoring of his vessel, "it seems to me that a sailor needs not to be so old as you say, Danglars, to understand his business. For our friend Edmond there does his, it seems to me, like a man who has no need to ask instruction from anyone." "Yes," said Danglars, casting toward Edmond a look in which a feeling of hate was strongly visible. "Yes, he is young, and youth is invariably self-confident. Scarcely was the captain's breath out of his body than he assumed the command without consulting anyone, and he caused us to lose a day and a half at the Isle of Elba, instead of making for Marseilles direct." "As to taking the command of the vessel," replied Morel, "that was his duty as first mate. As to losing a day and a half off the Isle of Elba, he was wrong, unless the ship wanted some repair. The ship was as well as I am, and as, I hope, you are, Monsieur Morel, and this day and a half was lost from pure whim, for the pleasure of going ashore and nothing else. Dante, said the ship owner, turning toward the young man, come this way. In a moment, sir, answered Dante, and I'm with you. Then calling to the crew, he said, let's go. The anchor was instantly dropped, and the chain rang rattling through the porthole. Dante continued at his post, in spite of the presence of the pilot, until this maneuver was completed, and then he added, lower the pennant half-mast high, put the ensign in a waft, and slope the yards. You see, said Danglars, he fancies himself captain already, upon my word. And so, in fact, he is, said the owner. Accept your signature and your partner's, Monsieur Morel. And why should he not have this? Asked the owner. He is young, it is true, but he seems to me a thorough seaman and full of experience. A cloud passed over Danglars' brow. Your pardon, Monsieur Morel, said Dante, approaching. The ship now rides at anchor, and I am at your service. You called me, I think? Danglars retreated a step or two. I wished to inquire why you stopped at the Isle of Elba. I do not know, sir. It was to fulfill a last instruction of Captain Leclerc, who, when dying, gave me a packet for the Maréchal Bertrand. Then did you see him, Edmond? Who? The Marshal. Yes. Morel looked around him, and then, drawing Dante on one side, he said suddenly, and how is the Emperor? Very well, as far as I could judge from my eyes. You saw the Emperor, then? He entered the Marshal's apartment whilst I was there. And you spoke to him? Why, it was he who spoke to me, sir, said Dante with a smile. And what did he say to you? He asked me questions about the ship, the time she left Marseilles, the course she had taken, and what was her cargo. I believe if she had been a ballast, and I had been her master, he would have bought her, but I told him I was only mate, and that she belonged to the firm of Morel and Son. He said, I know the Morels have been ship owners from father to son, and there was a Morel who served in the same regiment with me when I was in garrison at Valence. Pardieu, and that is true, cried the owner, greatly delighted. And that was Policar Morel, my uncle, who was afterward a captain, Dante. You must tell my uncle that the Emperor remembered him, and you will see it will bring tears into the old soldier's eyes. Come, continued he, patting Edmond's shoulder kindly. You did very right, Dante, to follow Captain Leclerc's instruction, and touch at the Isle of Elba, although if it were known that you had conveyed a packet to the Marshal, and had conversed with the Emperor, it might bring you to trouble. How could that bring me into trouble, sir? Asked Dante, for I did not even know of what I was a bearer, and the Emperor merely made such inquiries as he would of the first comer. But, your pardon, here are the officers of health and the customs coming alongside. Will you excuse me? Certainly, my dear Dante. The young man went to the gangway, and as he departed, Danglars approached and said, Well, it appears that he has given you satisfactory reasons for his landing at Port Farajo. Yes, most satisfactory, my dear Danglars. Well, so much the better, said the supercargo, for it is always painful to see a comrade who does not do his duty. Dante has done his, replied the owner, and there is nothing to say about it. It was Captain Leclerc who gave orders for this delay. Talking of Captain Leclerc, has not Dante given you a letter from him? To me? No. Was there one? I believe that, beside the packet, Captain Leclerc had confided a letter to his care. Of what packet are you speaking, Danglars? Why, that which Dante left at Port Ferrajo. How do you know he had a packet to leave at Porto Ferrajo? Danglars turned very red. I was passing close to the door of the captain's cabin, which was half open, and I saw him give the packet and a letter to Dante. He did not speak to me of it, replied the ship-owner, as if there be any letter he will give it to me. Danglars reflected for a moment. Then, Monsieur Morel, I beg of you, said he, not to say a word to Dante on this subject. I may have been mistaken. At this moment the young man returned, and Danglars retreated. Well, my dear Dante, are you now free? Inquired the owner. Yes, sir. You have not been long detained. No, I gave the custom-house officers a copy of our manifest, and as to the consignment, they sent a man off with the pilot, to whom I gave our papers. Then you have nothing more to do here? Dante cast a glance around. No, all is arranged now. Then you can come and dine with me? Excuse me, Monsieur Morel, excuse me, if you please, but my first visit is due to my father, though I am not the less grateful for the honor you have done me. Right, Dante, quite right. I always knew you were a good son. And, inquired Dante, with some hesitation, he is well, as far as you know. My father is well? I believe, my dear Edmond, though I have not seen him lately. Yes, he likes to keep himself shut up in his little room. That proves, at least, that he was wanted for nothing during your presence. Dante smiled. My father is proud, sir, and if he had not a meal left, I doubt if he would have asked anything from anyone in the world, except God. Well then, after this first visit had been made, we rely on you. I must again excuse myself, Monsieur Morel, for after this first visit has been paid, I have another, which I am no less anxious to pay. True, Dante, I forgot that there was at the Catalans someone expects you no less immediately than your father, the lovely Mercedes. Dante blushed. Ah, said the ship owner, that does not astonish me, for she has been to me 3 times, inquiring if there were any news of the Pharaon past. Edmond, you are a lucky fellow. You have a very handsome mistress. She is not my mistress, replied the young sailor gravely. She is my betrothed. Sometimes one and the same thing, said Morel with a smile. Not with us, sir, replied Dante. Well, my dear Edmond, continued the owner, do not let me detain you. You have managed my affairs so well that I ought to allow you all the time you require for your own. Do you want any money? No, sir, I have all my pay to take, nearly 3 months' wage. You are a careful fellow, Edmond. See, I have a poor father, sir. Yes, I know how good a son you are. So now haste away to see your father. I have a son too, and I should be very wroth with those who detained him from me after a 3 months' voyage. Then I have your leave, sir, said the young man, with a salute. Yes, if you have nothing more to say to me. Nothing. Captain Leclerc did not, before he died, give you a letter for me? He was unable to write, sir. But that reminds me that I must ask your leave of absence for some days. To get married? Yes, first, and then go to Paris. Very good. Have what time you require, Dante. It will take quite 6 weeks to unload the cargo, and we cannot get you ready for sea until 3 months after that. Only be back in 3 months for the Pharaon, added the owner, patting the young sailor on the back. Cannot sail without her captain. Without her captain? Cried Dante, his eyes sparkling with animation. Pray mind what you say, for you are touching on the most secret wishes of my heart. Is it really your intention to nominate me captain of the firm? If I were sole owner, I would give you my hand, my dear Dante, and say, it is settled. But I have a partner, and you know the Italian proverb, chi ha compagno ha padrone. He who has a partner has a master. But the thing is at least half done, as you have one out of the two voices. Rely on me to procure you to the other. I will do my best. Ah, Monsieur Morel, exclaimed the young seaman, with tears in his eyes, and grasping the owner's hand. Monsieur Morel, I thank you in the name of my father and of Marseilles. Good, good, Edmond. There's a sweet little cherub that sits up aloft that keeps a good watch for a good fellow. Go and see your father, go and see Marseilles, and come to me afterward. Shall I row you on shore? No, thank you. I shall remain and look over the accounts with Danglars. Have you been satisfied with him this voyage? That is according to the sense you attach to the question, sir. Do you mean he is a good comrade? No, for I think he never liked me since the day when I was silly enough, after a quarrel we had, to propose to him to stop for 10 minutes at the Isle of Monte Cristo to settle this dispute, a proposition which I was wrong to suggest, and he quite right to refuse. If you mean a supercargo, that you ask me the question, I believe there is nothing to say against him, and that you will be content with the way in which he has performed his duty. But tell me, Dante, if you had the command of the firm, would you be glad to retain Danglars? Captain or mate, Monsieur Morel, replied Dante, I shall always have the greatest respect for those who possess our owner's confidence. Good, good, Dante, I see you are a thorough good fellow, and will detain you no longer. Go, for I see how impatient you are. Then I have leave? Go, I tell you. May I have the use of your skiff? Certainly. Then for the present, Monsieur Morel, farewell, and 1,000 thanks. I hope soon to see you again, my dear Edmond. Good luck to you. The young sailor jumped into the skiff, and sat down in the stern, desiring to be put ashore at the Cannebiere. The two rowers bent to their work, and the little boat glided away as rapidly as possible in the midst of the 1,000 vessels which choke up the kind of narrow street which leads between the two rows of ships from the mouth of the harbor to the Quai d'Orleans. The ship owner, smiling, followed him with his eyes until he saw him spring out on the quay and disappeared in the midst of the motley throng, which from 5 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night choke up this famous street of La Cambière, of which the modern Phocéens are so proud, and say with all the gravity in the world, and with that accent which gives so much character to what it is said. If Paris had La Cambière, Paris would be a little Marseille. On turning round, the owner saw Danglars behind him, who apparently attended his orders, but in reality followed, as he did, the young sailor with his eyes. Only there was a great difference in the expression of the looks of the two who thus watched the movement of the seamen.